Uh, Today I'm taking a bit of a risk. I have 3 out of my 7 kids in the house, and they're preoccupied right now, so I'm gonna try and do my best to do this. Um, I don't know how long it'll last. If anybody has ever had kids, you know that, well, life's unpredictable. I know it's been a few days, and I was thinking things through since the last one I made, the first one I made, I should say. And I was thinking to myself, rather than just, pouring my heart out in every single video about my own past, I should start with some information near the beginning. And so I can already hear them. My one son is 14, the other one is 9, and then I have a 6-year-old. 2 of them are autistic. So things have to be just so. Unfortunately, the 14-year-old doesn't seem to think that the 9 and 6-year-old are behaving appropriately, even though it's normal. It's normal kid behavior, but if anybody's ever worked with an autistic child, routine is very important, and following that routine makes them feel safe. So even when something's very minor, it doesn't seem like it should be a thing, it's almost like detrimental, like, oh my goodness. It almost seems irrational at times too, where you're like, what? When my 14-year-old was little, and I would say, we're going to grandma's, and I mean, like, he was 3 years old and barely talking. If I took a left instead of a right to get there, he'd almost freak out. He'd kick this seat and scream, "This is not the right way! This is not the right way!" Because he was used to a certain direction we would go. And suddenly I'm thinking I'm going to pit stop, or, maybe I'll take a longer way just to enjoy the ride. And, suddenly it's panic mode. That was my first indication that he had autism a long time ago. But honestly, I personally fought against it for many, many years, just because that stigmatism, most people don't understand autism. They still don't to this day. They think autism is caused by a whole bunch of things. In truth, nobody really knows why it happens. It's just the brain's a little rewired. But it could be anything. I mean, generally anything. It could even be genetics until we find out. I mean, I'm not usually one to just jump into conspiracy, as I've said before. My whole thing is, unless it is backed up with a lot of facts, I'm not one to fall into that lingo. Which brings me to why I was delayed a few days. Well, for starters, like I said, I tend to get into my own head too much. As much as I wanted to continue, I was really actually hoping originally to do like once a day. Well, obviously that didn't happen because it's been, 4 days, 5 days? Hard to keep track of time at times. This is because I have a lot of extracurriculars, such as my children, my business that I run, and just everyday stressors. If anybody tells you that your life is put together and you know it's not, just do what I do. I mean, I shouldn't tell you what to do, but I roll my eyes because it's just like, okay. I don't know why I get told a lot that people, again, that whole, I don't know how you do it, that's the wrong, as I said before, the wrong thing to say, because I don't really have a choice in the matter. It's just what I have to do. It's a do or die situation. Asking how I do it is the same reason I wake up, because I'm here and because I have to. There is no way around it. And that's that. I mean, I don't know what else to say on that. But I also get told that it looks like everything I have is put together and calm, because I'm not freaking out and yelling at people saying, you know, get off my back. I can't take any more. Inside, I'm totally saying that. I 100% am, almost all the time. But outside, I know that if I say that, I'm going to get a negative reaction from people. And that just adds to my stress. So I just don't do it. I do that whole mask thing where, you know, you see it on TV, and it's becoming a little bit more prevalent, where, and now I have a child. Hang on one second. Okay, I was really hoping not to edit stuff, and I'm sorry I had to stop and not restart. I got 6 minutes in before a kid came down. I knew it was going to happen. Like I said, with autism, things have to be just so. And I cannot show, also that sometimes when I'm in pain. I know children need to see that. But in my children's case, doing that actually creates more stress. Because now, as I am the only caretaker left, I'm basically a single mom. I am married. My husband is still alive. There's a long story behind that, and I will eventually get into that. But I am technically by myself, raising all these kids. And they all know this. And based on our history, they have a lot of fear of losing me, because there is nobody else that could take care of them. They do not want to end up in a place where they don't feel safe. My stepdaughter often tells me that even though I put her with people that I know will keep her safe, she does not feel safe unless she's with me directly, because she knows I will fight for her. I mean, she's about to be 19. She should be able to fight for herself at this point. And you know what? She is spunky as crap. She's arrogant. She scares me, actually, because I wonder if she's just so naive. You know, she's actually one of the ones I fear most will be taken advantage of, because she's so naive and so arrogant. But when it comes to very obvious stressful situations, she has to be near me, and she's almost in pure panic mode at that point, cuddling behind me like a 5-year-old. But when the danger is not in your face, she's just like, whatever. The other day, she actually called me. She's with her mom's mom right now. Her mom since passed away, and I'll get into that woman too eventually. But she's with her Nana. I let my stepkids go and visit her to keep, you know, in relationships with her mother's side of the family. So she has been over there actually for about 2 weeks now, which is unusual. Usually it's just a weekend, maybe a week at best. But she's kind of taken the place of one of her grandmother's caregivers. Which she's fine with. Honestly, sometimes she makes it seem like things are being forced on her, but at the same time, when I actually ask and I talk to her about it, turns out she wants to be there. And frankly, I know that if she didn't want to be there, she wouldn't be. She pretends like she's being told what to do, but if she doesn't want to do something, she won't. She won't. Right out. So that brings me back to her arrogance. Something happened recently in our area that was very dangerous. Somebody was killed. It was a child. And I unfortunately know this child. And I shouldn't say I know this child so much as I know the family. I've actually been with them, which is why I have been delayed. My focus has been that family, in helping them with their grieving process. So this is where my time usually goes, is to other people. My therapist, my own personal therapist, seems to think it's a way for me to deflect from my own problems, is helping somebody else with theirs. I don't have to think about mine. I'm worried about them. And that is how, you know, I cope, I guess. To me, it's not like I'm forced to do these things. You know what I mean? I choose to. I choose to because I feel inside that it's the right thing to do. And not doing it is actually almost cruel. I don't have to throw my whole weight into it. But if asked, you know, for basic information, and I usually can get a sense of when I'm being used, and I know that, and I knew it. Hang on a minute. Okay, so at the 6-minute mark and at the 5-minute mark. And I'm back again. I knew this was going to be a bad idea, but I didn't want to wait too long. And if I try and do this at night and they hear me talking, they'll stay awake and come down and go, "Who are you talking to?" Because again, I don't do this, and they don't know I'm doing this. They think I'm actually having a conversation with somebody important at the moment. In about 2 hours, I will be. Actually, I take that back. In about 3 hours. In about 3 hours, I do have a session I have to attend to help one of my stepchildren. It's a family session. It's for my 17-year-old stepson. And I'll get into him eventually, too. This is one of those things where I guess I'll go straight back to the beginning. People think I have my life together. No. Anything but. I'm literally throwing it together as I go. I wake up in the morning and think, okay, here's A, B, and C I have to do. And then as things are thrown at me, I try to fit them in, you know? I don't want to tell you who the child is because he's become national news. If I even give you any clues, you'll probably figure it out. And frankly, it's been very controversial. I will say this was a good kid. He was gay, and he dressed in feminine clothes. I guess people mistook that as transgender, or from what the mother said anyway. Even though the mother had no custody, nor was she actually involved in the child's life. I probably just gave away too much as it is. I knew this family because when I was a kid in school, I knew one of the aunts. She graduated with me. She and her sister were my only friends, and I mean that. My final years of school, they were my only friends. And honestly, I didn't need anybody else. They were perfectly fine. I wanted to focus on my studies. I didn't really care for the other crowd anymore. It all goes back to the very beginning, which I'll continue on to that in a minute. But, you know, I think the biggest problem, I think the main message I want to do today is, you know, 1, don't judge a book by its cover, and 2, communication is the worst problem in this world. I think most people would agree with that because over time, what I've learned through a lot of dealings with a lot of government entities or with other people, nobody talks to each other. they hear things and then they interpret it in their own way. And so they will hear, you know, one generalization and they'll twist it to fit their own narrative. But then people get angry because you've twisted the narrative, but then you get mad because now you don't understand what their problem is, because you thought you were helping. You thought you were, you know, you knew what was going on. Rather than apologizing and saying, listen, I'm sorry, I thought that this was what you needed. What can I help you with? Most people will actually take it upon themselves, almost like a personal attack towards their own character. Like, oh, you're insinuating that I just don't know, or I'm stupid, or, you know, and it has nothing to do with that. So this is why communication sucks. A lot of couples out there, you know, they'll tell you in couples counseling that you probably lack in communication, even if you talk to your husband or wife every day. Unless you are truly, like, actively trying to figure out how their day is, or sharing that information, you're not communicating. An example would be, I'll share with you, my husband was an addict for a time. My husband also has C-PTSD. Jeez, sometimes I can't even say it. He has it from his own childhood. That's how he and I can understand each other a lot better. We understand we have triggers. We understand, you know, what upsets us. And then we also know how to ask each other for help. We also learn to interpret each other's behaviors. So if I'm angry, rather than taking it as a personal attack, or if I'm, like, getting to a point where I'm actually yelling at him because he's the one I feel safe hollering at times, he'll say, I can hear that you're mad. What happened today to bring this out? Because now you're taking it out on me. And then I'll say to myself, you're right. I am taking it out on you, and I shouldn't. This is what happened to me, and now I've been pent up because of blah, blah, blah. So when my husband was an addict at the time, you know, addicts are very irrational. So I would see his impulsivity increase. I mean, he already has ADHD, so, you know, it would go exponentially crazy. Like, I'd wake up in the morning and we have a calendar, and I would tell him, hey, I have A, B, and C to do today. And next thing I know, I look out the door and my car's gone. And it's like, where the fuck is my car? Sorry for swearing. Hang on again. Okay, again. Am I even going to get a whole hour in here, or 45 minutes? I don't even know if I'm going to get 30 at this rate. Anyway, so I would look out my window and, you know, my car's gone. And I'm calling him going, hey, where's my car? And he'll be like, well, I had to go to the store. And it's like, yeah, but I told you I had an appointment at 9 o'clock. It's now 8:45. I gotta go. And he'll be like, but I needed to do this. And then he'd be thinking that I'm personally angry with him. I mean, I am, but I'm more frustrated the fact that I'm going to be late for this appointment now. And I'm frustrated with the fact of, I told him the time and he didn't remember, which tells me he didn't care enough to remember. This is the problem with addicts. They become very self-centered. They're thinking about what's best for them. So our communication went downhill very fast. I tend to see that a lot with multiple people. Sometimes even with my stepkids, it's like a puzzle. You know, especially with my stepchildren, who all have C-PTSD. From the mother, and I use this term very, very lightly, but I'm only going to use it for the purposes of information, and that is a grandma. So, she's not a grandma. I mean, she's not even blood related. But anyway, that's up for a later conversation. But when one of them, particularly my stepdaughter, becomes very irrational, becomes very angry, very hyped up, something has pushed her buttons. And she's reacting to something that has happened. And I'm not sure entirely sometimes what that is. I'll just say to her, hey, you're yelling at me. I haven't done anything to you, but you're yelling at me. You're calling me names. You're telling me whatever. You're irate. You're yelling profanities. And I don't know what I did. So, what has upset you? And she will continue to yell and scream. What she's looking for, and this is how I know her, what she's looking for is for me to have a reaction. She wants me to be her mother. She wants me to yell back. She wants me to flip out, which I won't do. And when I don't give her what she wants, she will continue to go irate. She's trying to push me over the edge, so she can play victim. And I hate to say that term, but that is what it is. And so there will be this time where, I'll just ignore her. I've learned to just shut it out. One of my favorite phrases to use is the only way to win the game is not to play. In these situations when somebody is completely irate and almost on the border of narcissism, almost kind of sociopathic behavior. I mean, I'm not saying that they're sociopathic, just the behavior is similar, where they're not acknowledging your feelings. They might not even express like they have their own. It's just, I want this, you're not giving me this, I'm mad. Or, I want it, so I'm going to do what I have to in order to get it. In those cases, you're not going to win. There's no amount of reasoning you can give that will bring them back. There won't be. So this is that communication. This is the nonverbal communication, where you are listening to them, but you aren't following the narrative, I guess it would be. I'm not a therapist. Please don't take me. Always trust your own therapist. But this is what I've been taught. When someone yells at you, they're irate, and they want you to react, you are following the narrative if you react. They want you to follow the narrative because it's a form of manipulation. It's a form of gaslighting. What you need to do is not react. You need to stand back, take a look at the whole situation. Just try and think to yourself, okay, this person is angry. They're not angry at me because I know I didn't do anything, but they're angry in general, and they're using me as a battering ram, essentially. They're bumping off of me. Because sometimes they do that towards the people they love because you're the safe object. They need to do this, but you are the one they feel safest to do it with. That's not okay, but it is reality. So my stepchildren tend to become irate with me because they know I'm not going to hurt them. They know I'm not going to react. They know that even though they're in their head, they still think I'm going to, because of their own triggers, I'm not doing it. So they'll continue to do it. And then they also know that when they're done doing it, they can come to me and break down and open up and apologize and explain to me how they were feeling. Whereas other people, they just go, I don't owe you a sorry, whatever, go away. Because now they're too afraid to apologize. They're too afraid that if, now that they know that they've, personally pissed off this other person, they know this other person's probably mad at them. And now that person is not a safe spot. Whereas me, they know I'm just absorbing it. They know that they did wrong to me and they're sorry. But I mean, sometimes I'll say to them, sorry doesn't cut it. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and be like, you're grounded forever, I'm taking away your phones. But, yeah. As you can see, I'm pretty fractured today. I have my kids upstairs. It makes it very difficult for me to focus because I'm also listening. I'm constantly listening. My hearing is very sensitive to tone. And that's just because of even what my stepkids have put me through. They have unintentionally created a trigger within me. They didn't mean to do it. It's just what happened. And that's just because, you know, I had to change my own way of thinking to handle their reactions, where I didn't become upset. I didn't take them personally. However, I knew I had to go into a certain type of mode, you know what I mean? Where there is a work mode. You know, you go to the workplace, you act a certain way. You go to home, you act a certain way. You go out to Walmart, you act a certain way. You're with your friends, you act a certain way. In my case, when I'm around them, I act a certain way. Some people think I'm too nice to them. There's a reason for that, because becoming irate with them won't help them. If I punish them, all they do is go back to how their mom treated them. So I have to do things a certain way with them. And it is like walking on eggshells. And no, it's not fair. But it's what I have to do. This is one of those, I am not all together. I'm, like I said, I'm fractured right now. I'm not freaking out. I'm not screaming because there's no point. But I will say I am pulled 20 different directions this week. I have my children. I have my stepson, who is in a treatment facility right now, the 17-year-old, which is why I have a session with him today. I have the 19, almost 20-year-old, and I take that back. He is 20. Why did I say that? I don't know. He is 20 years old. He stays with his friend, but around 2 o'clock, he almost calls me religiously asking me for something. And sometimes it's irrelevant, and sometimes it's he's angry, and I am, again, the safe person to talk to. When he came into a crisis a few days ago, he actually freaked out on his sister because I was taking a nap, and he couldn't get a hold of me. So he was very scared, but he was mean to his sister. He was very threatening towards her because she would not wake me up. And then I have, you know, my stepdaughter who, you know, calls me in the middle of the night, is arrogant. And again, we had the death in the community, and she calls me and she's mad because somebody offered, who's a friend of the family, and not some stranger, but a friend who said to her, let me walk you back to, you know, your grandma's, because she'd walked across to give him, you know, her sister. So this is her half sister to her mom's second boyfriend. She was visiting with the little girl. She's 6. She walked the little girl home, and the dad said, let me walk you back over to your grandma's. And instead of just accepting the offer or saying no thanks, what she said to me was that she said to him was, I don't need no man to walk me home. And then she didn't understand why that upset him. And then she got upset, so she calls me and she's yelling, he's angry because I said I don't want no man to walk me home. He's mad because I won't let him. And I said, no, he's upset with the way you said it. It's not about what you said, it's how you said it. You could have said no thank you. I can get across on my own. But instead, you almost insinuated that him walking you home was offensive. And it's not. We had a death in that community, and frankly, the place that he's going to walk you to is right next to where it happened. So he's concerned for your safety, and he wants to make sure you get back to your grandmother's because it's the middle of the freaking night. there was a murder at 3 a.m. by a person who never even had a traffic ticket. And it's to someone that we know that we're family friends with. I mean, I was at the hearing for the murder 3 days ago. And I mean, I'll tell you what, that hearing was 6 hours long. It was a preliminary hearing. They are not supposed to go that long. And they are supposed to be very minor. This much information. The purpose of a preliminary hearing is to see if there's enough information to move up to bigger court, out of the magistrate. And then you go to formal arraignment, and then you go to call of the list, which is where somebody will plead not guilty or guilty. And then you proceed to trial. In this case, this preliminary hearing was held almost like a mini trial. There was information given that I was not prepared for. I had actually told the family ahead of time that stuff wasn't even going to happen. And then it happened. I was shocked. I mean, we found out how he died. We found out the manner of death. We found out. They showed the video of him moving the body. It was awful. It was awful. And to top it off, the news is the news, and they made it worse. No cameras are allowed in the courthouse, so it's not like they could videotape the actual hearing, but the way they wrote things up, just adding insult to injury, calling this child something that he's not, and completely almost disregarded the dad because the mom showed up for 20 minutes after, and I mean after, 3 other people had come that have no relation to the family at all. And one of the aunts had actually, we came out for a recess, and they were talking to the news, and they were telling them that this child was something that he wasn't. And the aunt, kind of yelled at them and said, stop, don't talk about him like that. You don't know him. And I don't blame her, because it's true. They didn't know him. They had no idea. They only know what was being spread in the news. So what they did was those 3 left, got the mother, and I mean, the hearing started at 10 a.m. Our recess was at noon. At 12:45, we were supposed to come back in. The hearing again didn't start again until around 1 o'clock. At 1:15, the mother walks in. What I had found out was they left after that. They went to the mother's. They made her come back with them, and they shoved her right in front of the cameras. Then they went inside, and when the father went to go take a break, because, my God, being told that your child was sexually assaulted 20 different ways, and, the defense is almost insinuating that it's the child's fault. He needed a break. But then the mother and her 3 little buddies, they actually went out of the courtroom and tried to fight him. I mean, come on. Your child's been killed. Why does that matter? Why does your pettiness matter? You should be there for your child. He was. And, it's very lucky that he went to the bathroom, because they walked right past him. Actually, some of the security guards overheard them saying that they were looking for him so they could hit him, so they could cause a problem for him. I don't know exactly the language that they used. I just remember hearing, oh, he left. Let's go find him. Because she'd filed a false protection order against him already and forced him out of his own child's vigil. I mean, I was at that vigil. When I saw them being shoved out, the whole community thought the family was there to riot. They didn't know. This is that whole communication thing. Nobody knew what was happening. They see what they want to see. They hear what they want to hear. He didn't curse. He didn't freak out. He just went to the other sidewalk and had to listen to complete strangers talk about his child. As a mom, I can't imagine doing that to anybody. I saw one mother actually say she was shocked that she actually has a protection order against her own husband if something happened to one of their children. Never would she shove him out. Because it's his child too. But now the community thinks he's a bad man, when he was all that child had. And now that child's gone. I can't even say anything anymore. I know that the mother had abused the child, similar to what my stepchildren went through, which is why it's so personal to me too. Because I know that. I know that whole, the mom is always supposed to be the one that's protecting them. And it's hard for people to comprehend the idea of a mother doing that kind of abuse to a child, their own child. Unfortunately, that was his child's case. And then he was murdered. And I was at that hearing from beginning to end. And that woman showed up. And before she even came in the courthouse, she went straight for the cameras. She acted like she was there the whole time. Only one news station actually got it right. I think it was Penn Live. They were the only ones that got it right. They said flat out, Mom wasn't there. She wasn't. And after 20 minutes of being in there, she tried to chase down Dad, cause a problem. And then she left and never came back. And then, of course, she went online with her buddies and tried to talk about the hearing that she was never in. I mean, for more than 20 minutes. And frankly, the only thing she talked about, because, when people are in a courtroom, it's quiet. So quiet. And, you can hear people whisper what they say. And it had nothing to do with her child. These kind of things internally hurt me. Especially, it's one of those things where you know the truth, but the rest of the world doesn't. And you're trying to tell it, but if you do, I like the way this is a trauma therapist, one of the ones that's actually working with my stepson. He said to me, "You are a witch. This is the equivalent of the old 1400s witch era, where you're a witch. Why are you a witch? Because the idea of, I shouldn't even say 1400s, just super old times. It's not 1400s, that's way too far back. But, see, my math is going off too. Usually my math's pretty spot on. But anybody who understands what I'm talking about, the Salem witch trials, okay? So the whole thing with the Salem witch trials was, they would accuse anybody who seemed a little smarter. And I'm not saying that I'm smarter, okay? I'm just saying that was usually the target, was people who were more intelligent, more well-off, luckier. Somebody who wasn't, though, like, prevalent in the community. You know what I mean? And if you tried to defend that person, you were a witch too. And that's the problem. Especially with this situation, and why I have been so preoccupied. I felt, there were days actually where I put the phone down because I couldn't stand to look at social media anymore. I felt like I was fighting the world because it wasn't fair to hear the terrible things people would say, or the fact that people would use this child's death to further their own agendas. This therapist said, in order to get them to understand what they're doing, you have to change their way of thinking. And that is one of the most hardest things to do for humans, is change their way of thinking. Because in a way, they have to admit that the way they thought before wasn't correct. And the idea of saying you were wrong, I know a lot of people know this. It is so hard for people to go, look, I was wrong. I was mistaken. Because then you're afraid that everything you do is going to be called wrong. And it's unfortunate that we don't feel safe enough to do that. But we don't. I've learned not to care, I guess is the best way I can put it. I have learned that I don't like to lie. I don't like liars. I can't stand them because it is so difficult to do. And I mean, once you start that lie, you have to make up more lies to keep it up. And then you get wrapped up into it, and especially in your own head. And I've seen what happens to people when they do that. I won't lie to people if they ask me, how are you doing? I'll say, well, today is a little stressful. But most people don't even ask me that. They'll just say, hey, what are you doing today? And the answer is usually nothing. Even though technically I am doing something, it's just kind of one of those, I don't know yet. I know that I have A, B, and C to do, but I'm almost prepping for something else to be in all these other spots. I am prepping for this phone call that may not even come. I'm prepping for this session that might get canceled. I am prepping for my eldest daughter to throw a tantrum because I won't let her drive home. There's a possibility she may even be sent home early from work. She works at Dairy Queen. Loves her job there. Been in there for about a year. But, again, I'm probably scattered all over the place. I'm giving you bits and pieces. I mean, I probably started somewhere in my earlier sessions, and then my kids distracted me, and then I'm somewhere else. Again, I am fractured. Most people who are overwhelmed are fractured. They might not even know it. They might feel something's wrong with them. Or they might feel like, maybe I just need a nap. They're overwhelmed, and they need a minute. Sometimes I need a minute. And that is why I took a few days. Because after that hearing, I literally had phone calls from all kinds of people. Because they didn't trust the news. And I mean, I get it. Because the news, again, I think Penn Live's the only one that got it right. 90% of it, except the last part where they said the trial was the 24th. There is no trial on the 24th who anybody understands who I'm talking about. That is a formal arraignment. And that is just when attorneys exchange discovery. The DA had said that it's probably not going to be until another 4 months or so where they'll let everybody know where they're at in the case. I mean, they're actually just kind of waiting for DNA to come back. But that's for anybody who understands who I'm talking about. I would really prefer not to say it. Because honestly, anytime I've tried to say it, I get shut down. My comments have been deleted from different websites. I get attacked. because they again, they want to believe what they want to believe. They want to believe what they were told in the news. They want to believe what they were told by their friends. I was at the hearing. I know the family. I know what's factual. But I'm one out of a whole bunch of people, and we are a itty-bitty fracture of this planet. And even with the father on camera saying exactly who his child was, doesn't matter. They still actually wrote the headline wrong. He says one thing and the headline said another. Sometimes it doesn't even make any sense. They'll say, well, this is what happened, but Dad disagrees and he says blah, blah, blah. It's almost insinuating that the father is the problem. It's once again, it's a problem with media. However, the media is almost like a chicken and the egg situation. The reason the media does that is because they get readers. You don't get, like I said, Penn Live is one of the most accurate ones that actually reported correctly on that hearing. And aside from that mix up with not trial, but it's formal arraignment, they don't have very many readers. I mean, you wonder why, but it's the truth. Why wouldn't anybody listen to it? Because it's not shocking enough. This other stuff is more shocking. That's what gets people's attention. They're like, oh my goodness, I have to read this one. Because how could this happen to this child who's this way? Even though they're not that way. For those who do not know what I'm talking about, I probably sound crazy. I'm talking in riddles. Again, the reason I will not say his name is because I know what kind of negative attention that gets. This child was a good child. Didn't do drugs. Made some mistakes. Good kid. Shouldn't have ended up like this. This is the last thing that should happen to him. And the fact that he's being used to further people's notions on things, it's gross. They are personalizing it with their own pain, and I understand they want to make themselves feel better. They think they're being supportive. They're not. It's anything but. They want to be supportive. If you know who I'm talking about, your best option is to listen to the father, who also made some mistakes, but he loved his child very much. It's tearing him apart. Every day, he's at the site where they found the body. Every day, he is at the site where his son was killed. He is there every day. He posts pictures of the sunset, saying, he says, this is for my baby. This is a sign from my child. If that happened to my child, I'd probably do the same thing. But you don't see the mom. I mean, now my 17-year-old is calling me, so I have to take a break for a minute and figure out what she wants. So I'll be back, cat, in another minute. Thank you. Hello again. Turns out it was nothing. All of my kids have some kind of trauma to them. My stepkids have the worst, but they all have ADHD. That makes impulsivity terrible. Sometimes it's completely random. Like I said, they'll call me and it's almost, it doesn't even make sense. It'll be, hey, can you tell me a phone number? It's like, why didn't you text me and ask me that? Why have you called me 20 times to get a phone number? Why couldn't you just send a text? Hey, can you send a phone number? Or, you know, I need Jess right now. I need her right now. Something's happening on Saturday and it's Tuesday. It's like, dude, relax. And even if you tell them, I can't right now, I will talk to you at 4, still, again, their anxiety is way up, and they're irrational. Okay. So, I think I've talked long enough in circles. I will continue to where I was the last time I left off, with my own story. Okay, so, I was unaware, 6, 7, I just remember 1st grade, to be honest. I just know it was somewhere in there. And it's a house in Sharon, Pennsylvania. I don't want to give its exact location. You're not really supposed to know where it is, even though everybody kind of does. It's supposed to be a safe house. Not really safe. It is a 2-story home. It has a lot of bedrooms. It has a kitchen, a very classic Victorian type style. You know, the living room is Victorian style too. It has like the giant bay window, but like hexagon-y. And cameras galore. I mean, they got a key card to get in there, so that way it's all locked up. And everybody who lives around it knows it's a safe house. So I'm a little kid, and I'm now in this shelter with these other moms, because it's women. There's no men. There's little boys, but no men. And the room that we had, considering how many of us there were, it was a room with bunk beds. And these kids were mean. At the time, I didn't realize, you know, how trauma affects people, and the different reactions people have to different levels of trauma. But I was also a little kid. I now understand that these kids, they had trauma too, based on their experiences with, you know, probably the dad or boyfriend, which led them out of their home and into this safe house. But at the time, I'm a little kid, and I'm scared, and I want to go home. And I'm not understanding what my dad did as wrong. Like, I knew what he did was wrong, but I also know that she provoked it. You understand? So, his reaction was bad, but her primary action was also bad. And because this tit for tat, I am now lost my home. I also was not aware that my father had lost the home, you know, financially. I wasn't aware of any of that. So now I'm stuck in this house with these kids who are, you know, insulting to the max. You know, I want to, you know, talk to somebody. I want to be friends with somebody. There's no counselors. There's no nothing. It's just other women who are battered. My mom's arm is all locked up in this big old sling. I think it was blue, if I remember correctly. But her arm was almost sealed to her chest. And then you have another one with a neck brace. Another one who's clearly got black and blue marks all over her, and she's got a black eye. And then there are these kids. You know, there's donated toys, clothes. Everybody's pretty somber. They're just quiet. The kids are mean. But the moms, they're in a state of shock, because they've also lost their homes. But to me, I don't feel safe right now. I don't know any of these people, and none of them are giving me a safety vibe. No one's making me feel good about being here. I don't see anybody saying, hey, you're going to be okay. It'll be all right. Nobody's saying that. Not a single person. Not even my own mom. I'm now just stuck in this place. I can't see my friends anymore. and nobody's coming to tell me what's going to happen. So at one point, I didn't even feel safe being around my own siblings. My sister started to become mean towards me. I didn't realize at the time that she was bipolar. And so they had this office, a bunch of desks in there and some computers. Old-fashioned desktop, big old monsters on top and the towers underneath. I actually went and hid underneath one of those desks to cry, because one of the kids had actually yelled at me, told me, I was stupid, I was terrible, what kind of loser was I? I'm ugly, no one's ever going to love me. No one's telling me any different at the point. It's literally just these kids saying this to me. You're not part of this. You're excluded from the group. So I went underneath one of these desks and I just kind of laid against it, underneath. And I'm just laying there, having my head against the metal, I remember. And then I start hearing people yelling my name. And then I realize they're looking for me. But I don't want to come out. Like, it's one of those, I know that if I come out, these kids are going to yell at me again. They're going to tell me how stupid was I to hide underneath this desk. People are going to be mad at me. I don't want anybody to be mad at me anymore. I'm tired of it at this point. I want my dad. I didn't know he was in jail. I didn't know what had become of him. It was just, my whole life was just chopped in half. It was one way and then it was another. It's almost like death. It's, you had something and now all of a sudden it's nothing. All that's gone. All at once, too. It's not even gradual. It's completely like a big old slice. I don't think people understand how hard it is sometimes for people to actually leave domestic situations, because it really is. It's like death. You are saying, my entire life that I have right now, I'm about to chop it off. And some people might say, well, that's a good thing. You won't get beat up anymore. But they're forgetting the fact that they're also going to have to hide sometimes even from their friends and their family. They're going to lose their jobs. A lot of things. I mean, my mom actually didn't have a job at the time. And, she had her parents, and she was still able to communicate with them. Back in the day, domestic violence stuff was so different. But I hid underneath this desk, and I hid. And people started screaming for me. And screaming. I don't even know how long I was underneath there. It was a while. And now I see my sister's head pop around the corner. She's nose to nose with me. Found her! And again, I have no idea, honestly, how long I was there. But I guess I was in there long enough for them to call the police on my father and accuse him of stealing me. Which he did not do. And, of course I got yelled at. So, once again, I'm worthless. Nothing I do is right. My feelings don't matter. Just kept reiterating that over and over and over again. First time I left that house was for a family visit with my father. He came, he was allowed to pick me and my sister, and I think my little brother up. I don't remember if he came with us or not. But I do remember going with my dad to his parents' house, who lived just a little actually down the street from this safe house. And when we were there, he gave me and my sister a gift. At the time, I really didn't know what it was. I'm a little kid. But it was pretty. I didn't know it was also something my mom actually cherished. She liked those precious moments. So he gave me and my sister a precious moment. And not just anyone. Not just like anyone. I still actually have it to this day. Let me show you. I have to actually move, so forgive me. to this day, it's right here. This is what he gave me when I was 6. This was my gift going with him. It's still intact, except one little duck is missing here at the bottom. But, I mean, again, I'm almost 40, and it's still here with me from when I was 6, 7 years old. This is my one happy memory of all that. So, he gave one for me. He gave one to my sister. My sister's was a little different. However, hers has since shattered, unfortunately. So she lost hers. It was shortly after that we left that house. It was something to remember, but it wasn't very long. I don't remember going to counseling. I don't remember even doing a group session, to be honest. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't, but obviously it wasn't memorable enough for me to remember. Next thing I remember is being in Greenville, and we were in a home that has since been replaced with an AutoZone in Greenville. At the time, it was a little old house, and we had woods next to us on one side and an auto body shop on the other, and Burger King right across the street. Literally. If my dad wanted BK, he just had to walk across the street. Yes, that's right. We moved back in with my dad. That, I don't know why. Whoever knows why. But we did. And just kind of the same behaviors continued. Now my mom had my little brother, Daniel. And I love my little brother. He was my focus of growing up. I wanted to take care of my sister and my brother too, my other brother, but they were angry, you know, from everything we went through. So it was very hard to bond with either of them. I'm going to tell you something. Please do not hate my sister. She was a little girl. Please remember that. But I'm going to tell you this. There was a time we had hamsters. And if she's watching this video, she knows exactly where I'm going with this. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know she still gets angry at herself for this. But she had a little brown and white one. I had a white one. And we had one of those cages with all the little tunnels and stuff. One day, she took her hamster out, and for some reason, she thought if she put it on the couch next to her, it would just stay there like a cat. Well, next thing you know, she looks down, and it's gone. It's like, oh shit, where'd it go? Oops. Every day, we'd actually set up a little trap, like not a thing that would kill it. A very classic type of, here's a tin on a piece of stick with peanut butter attached, and so the tin will drop down on it and keep it alive. And we thought maybe it would catch the hamster. Never caught the hamster, but every day we had a mouse. I mean, I'm not even joking in the slightest. It was always, every day, a mouse. I mean, we did live next to the woods. However, one day, my mom was yelling at me. I'm now in second grade. Let's see, that would put me at about 8, maybe 7, 8. And I don't even remember what she was yelling at me about. I really don't. But I was upset. I went up to my room. And I went up to my hamster's cage, and I saw it in the tunnel. And it was a green tunnel. And, again, my hamster was white. Now, if it got wet, it always had, like, some green on it, on its little butt. I don't even know why, but that's just what happens every time it was wet. I assumed, like, not cleaning itself, right? I mean, it was a little fat thing. But I went up there, and it was in its tunnel, and I thought I was asleep. So I was going tap, 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 tap. And it didn't move. And I'm like, ugh, I don't want to get it out, because it might bite me. It has done that before. So I don't want to get it out of the tunnel. So I'm still like tap, 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 tap. It's still not moving. So I reached in and I touched it. I kind of scooped it up and I realized it's wet. Why is it wet? And I pulled him out and I realized he was dead. I'm coming back downstairs with this dead hamster, sobbing. My mom thinks I'm still upset about her yelling at me, God knows what. I'm trying to tell her my hamster's dead. She's just screaming at me, get out of my face. I'm trying to say my hamster's dead. She didn't care. Whatever was bugging her that day, it was back to the communication. I don't know what's upsetting her, but obviously, even though I've had something happen, I'm not important enough to pay attention to right now. So I go upstairs and I just cry. I don't even know what had happened. Later that night, when my father came home from work, I was able to tell him, and he, reacted and goes, oh my God, like, what'd you do? And I didn't do anything. It was in there. It died. It's wet. I don't know why it's wet. My sister was a little girl. She wanted to play with a hamster because she lost her own. She put it in the sink to give it a bath. She drowned it. She panicked and she put it back in. She's not happy about it. It honestly was the second animal I'd lost. The first one was a kitten. My mom had taken it to get fixed, and I came home to her crying. They had used too much gas. They had died during the surgery. So, honestly, I didn't know that still bothers me. I talked about it more, and I don't usually have this kind of reaction. But, living in that house, it was, I just wanted to take care of my brother. I mean, I found out the Easter Bunny wasn't real when I lived at that house, too. It was, again, one of those things where, I did something wrong, according to my parents. It was Easter, and I knew that my baby brother had had a reaction to some kind of nut in some chocolate one time. And I noticed that in his basket was like an almond Hershey. And I looked at my dad and I said, oh my God, you can't give that to him. He's allergic to it. He's allergic to it. And he pulled me aside and he said, stop it. Your brothers and sisters don't know the Easter Bunny isn't real yet. It was like, whoa, what? Back up. I didn't know that yet. I was just telling you because I thought the Easter Bunny screwed up and put it in the wrong basket. Now I'm being told that it was him, and he assumed lack of communication. Didn't ask, just assumed that I didn't believe in the Easter Bunny anymore. And that I was accusing him of putting the wrong chocolate in the basket. every day was trying to live up to their expectations. Every day was trying to get their attention. And every day it just seemed to be less and less. It was more about their problems and what they were going through. I mean, my mom would make crafts. You know, she was a Girl Scout leader at one point, put me in Girl Scouts, but it was about what she wanted. It wasn't about what I wanted. I did the Girl Scouts because she wanted me to do the Girl Scouts. I never felt welcomed. I did the crafts because she asked me to do the crafts. I mean, I liked the crafts. But if I tried to change up the crafts and do something even a little bit different, I messed up. One day she was making a quilt. She had actually taken one of the spare bedrooms and made it into a quilt room with all this fabric and sewing, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I wanted to learn how to use that rolling knife thing and, you know, make patches for her. Well, I got yelled at because I got into the quilt room and I cut up some of the fabric. I didn't cut her quilt up. I mean, if I would have done that, looking back, I can understand why she'd be mad. But it was just, you know, I've taken something that she had and I've cut it. It wasn't even something she was really using at the time. It was just literally extra fabric. And I just wanted to figure out how she cut the shape out. So I was literally freehanding it, trying to make these little hexagons. Or these squares. And of course, I'm a little kid, and, you know, I'm not going to brag and say my art skills are great, but they weren't bad. But they still weren't great. We lost that house. I didn't know that my dad had lost it financially again. I just knew that we suddenly had to move again. We had to go to another house. And the house was actually down the street from this house. This is when my mom started to go to school again. She went back to be a nurse at Teal College, who back then actually produced nurses. They don't do that anymore. But back then they did. And Greenville is where Teal is. So it was real easy for her to go to school. And then the hospital was actually in the backyard of our home, right off of Main Street. So she could walk to work every day. You know, there was no driving. My dad did have to do some driving because he worked all kinds of places. But, I mean, one time he worked at Harrisburg, another time he worked at Pittsburgh, one time he worked at Akron. I mean, he was all over the place. He was a computer programmer. And actually the more technical term would be analyst. He was a computer analyst. He helped design a lot of the programs, including some of the insurance companies that still run today. And if something went wrong with any of these programs, all he had to do was, like, he'd get a call in the middle of the night, he'd roll out of bed, he'd get on the computer, he'd punch in some codes, and then he'd call them and say, "Is it working now? Okay, good, I'm going back to bed." We had one of the Apples when they first came out. They could do the tennis. It was very codey. I was very interested at my dad's computer job. Fascinated me. I mean, my mom's artwork fascinated me. Everything I did to her was wrong. I never felt good enough. My dad was more crazy than she was, but then he wasn't around very much either. So I was looking for love. And it was very hard to find. My sister acted like she hated me. And so did my one brother. My baby brother was the only thing I had. They didn't have time for them either. And so when my little brother was like 2, I'd stand him up and my mom would just leave him in the living room with me, and then she'd walk away. And so I'd stand him up, and I'd hold him up underneath his armpits, and I put him right next to the chair and have him take steps towards the chair. I was trying to help him learn how to walk. And when he first did it, I was really excited. I actually yelled at him, look, 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 he can walk. Nothing. But that little boy, you know, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and he was in my bed. It scared me once. I was actually having a nightmare and I woke up and I didn't realize he was next to me. I just felt something, and I actually, I flipped my arm real quick and he fell out of the bed. I was like, oh shit. I'm sorry, Daddy. And I picked him back up and I tucked him back in, and he fell asleep, but he just kind of laid on the floor like, what just happened? I didn't know he was in there. But I started focusing more on little kids because I was getting attention from them. And I enjoyed helping them because I didn't feel worthy enough to get anything for myself. Same that happened at school. I mean, I'm at Greenville School. And I've started it in 2nd grade, so I don't know anybody. I had one friend, her name was Diana. I didn't really, it's not like I went to her house or anything. My family was very secluded. They didn't let us out. I think they were afraid of us talking about our home life. And it's not like, you know, my dad beat us on a regular basis, but I mean, it did still happen. One time, you know, I'd been collecting money and I kept it in this jewelry box of mine. I had about almost $100 actually. One day I open it and it's missing. I'm like, where'd it go? And I'm looking around, and the only person I could think of is Sarah, my sister. Did you steal my money? No. Again, she's 2 years younger than me. And I'm just, Dad! And he comes upstairs, and Sarah stole my money. And, you know, he's asking her, and she's saying no, she's saying no, she's saying no. Then he leaves again. And I'm starting to observe something. She's sitting on her pillow. Like, literally, like her big old pillow. She's literally got her butt on it, on her bed. She's Indian style cross, sitting on that thing. And I'm like, what's under your pillow? Nothing. What's under your pillow? Nothing. That face. We all do that face in this family. It's actually, like, it's, even with little white lies, always the same face. I do the same thing. Nope. I don't know what you're talking about. Which is also why I don't lie, because I can't. I mean, my husband actually finds it funny. But anyway, I took that pillow and, you know, like tablecloth underneath dishes. Of course, she fell off. She didn't stay there. There's my money. Dad, it's my money. She had it underneath her pillow. I regret that. I regret that a lot. Because he came flying up there, and he took his belt off, and he whipped her with it. A lot. And she screamed. And I hated myself. I hated myself for telling him. She didn't, you know, she deserved a consequence. She didn't deserve that. That whole, you know, talk to kids, no, don't physically discipline them. Yes and no. What my dad did was wrong. That wasn't discipline. That's punishment. There's a difference. Punishment is, I'm mad and I'm going to show you how angry I am. That's what he was doing. Because now he's made a fool of. Because he insisted that my sister didn't have it, and I have now just proven him wrong. And instead of saying, you know, Sarah, you give that money back and tell her you're sorry, or I'm gonna take away outside time for a little bit or something like that, it is full on rage. That's wrong. I think people think that all, you know, spankings and things like that is wrong because they all feel like that is the result every single time. I think it's also because we fear other humans don't know when to stop. We feel that, you know, most people have this rage inside of them that when they're actually giving the spanking, it's because they're angry. Instead of, you know, maybe I am tapping them once on the butt to tell them, listen, you running over across that road is extremely dangerous, and I need you to remember that. I'm not doing it to hurt them. It's to remind them. In my dad's case, it was, I'm angry. He might think that he's teaching her some kind of lesson. The only lesson she's going to remember is the fact that if I tell her, she's going to get hurt. That's it. She's not going to think about a lesson. The only lesson she's learned is now to hate me, which is what ended up happening. And, so, there was even a time where we had this cat, and, he was a rescue. We named him Pretzel. He was a Persian. And honestly, his previous owner had abused him where he lost most of his teeth. So when he, you know, walked around, his tongue would stick out. It was like, just all over the place. It was funny. But because he's a Persian, he's got that look. So he's doing this. Everybody thought, like, evil demon cat. Nah. My grandmother, my dad's mom, she had this dog. We called him Sonny. He was kind of like a Toto. A little different, but still raggedy and the stringy hair and stuff. Didn't like that cat. The cat scurry around and run in circles. And as a little kid, that's funny. I'm laughing because that dog is itty bitty and scaring the bejesus out of this cat that could probably whip his butt. And at one point, my sister, she took the cat, she put, my brothers had these bunk beds, and she put it on the top bunk to try and keep the cat away from the dog. And I'm like, no, let's dog chase it. I know, it sounds pretty evil. That was my impulsivity. I do have ADHD too. Not that that's an excuse. But at the time, I didn't see the harm. The dog wasn't hurting the cat was just running. I didn't understand that it was a fearful thing. It was just that dog is goofy and that cat is reacting like it's going to kill it, even though he's not. So I said, no, put the cat down. And she wouldn't do it. So I climbed up on the top bunk and I took the cat. And I actually kind of held him over the side. And you know, you always think when they're little, kitties land on their feet. And I didn't throw him. God, that would have been awful. I leaned down as far as I could, which I'm little, so that's not very far. And I'm thinking, you know, this is the same distance as if he was going to jump off the dresser. A little less than that even. But he's also an old cat, and I didn't calculate that part. So I let go and he hit the floor. And what was told to me later was that his kneecaps had almost shattered. And I'm being screamed at as some animal abuser. Now I'm I'm bad again. It's always I'm bad. And I knew, you know, I didn't understand what was wrong. And I felt terrible that he got hurt. But I didn't want him to get hurt. But my family acted like I did. So now I'm bad again. Still no love, no praise, no appreciation, no nothing. It was just reiterated by that, and inside I know I did let go of the kitty, and I'm hating myself again. It might seem silly, but after a while these things start to compound, and they start to twist your line of thinking into actually believing you're worthless. My stepson used that word recently in his trauma therapy, where he says his feeling is I'm worthless. That is his core belief. To be honest, I don't feel like that's his core belief, because I know what happened to him. I think he's using that because the therapist actually threw that out at him. His real core belief is that he's a bad person. Because he says that a lot. He'll always say, well, my mom said I was a bad person, so I might as well be one. Which is why he's in this facility. I can't tell you how much of a failure I felt when I had to put him there. Because it was something I saw coming, but I wanted desperately to fix it. But I couldn't. Any case, next thing you know, I'm moving again to another town. Now it's called Hermitage. And we didn't move to a house. We moved in with my grandma, my dad's mom, in my 4th grade. So now I'm in a whole different school. A whole slew of other people. And this school is cliquey. And if you understand what I mean by cliquey, I mean cliquey. I am completely outcasted at this point. I don't know anybody. I didn't grow up with any of them. And so I am the new kid. And I'm walking in there, keeping my head down. Because I'm not talking, I'm weird. Because I don't look pretty in their eyes. I'm not worth talking to. Something must be wrong with me. I'm easy to bully. And I don't fight back. Because I've learned not to over the years. I don't want to be somebody that hurts somebody else. I want to be loved. I want to matter. But I also don't want that kind of negative attention. So I sit around and do nothing. I'm trying to read other people's cues, and it's really hard for me at this point. I'm 4th grade. 9, 10-ish. And now I don't even have a home. I didn't know my dad lost the house again. And I mean, to be honest, I know I'm skipping over a lot, but their fighting didn't stop. And once my dad threw his shoe in the window, through a window I should say, in Greenville. He got mad because my sister and I were talking too loud at night. He wanted us to go to sleep, so he walked in our room and told us to shut up, picked up a boot, went right through the window. Scared the shit out of me. It was dodging eggshells, and honestly, I started to fear my mom more than my dad at this point, because my mom was the one who was around. And my dad was gone all the time. So it went back to that whole when I wasn't aware, where I'm stuck with people who don't want me around. That's the way I felt. Even if they said they did, I didn't feel that way. And, yeah, I think I should end there for today. Sorry it was really fractured at the beginning there. I'm surprised I actually got 41 minutes in before I had to end this. Because I kept, like I said, I'm listening. I hear them. But they didn't come down. So I apologize. And I'm sorry that I'm saying sorry. Because I've told everybody a million times not to do that. Here I am doing it. But this is why I do that. This is one of those, not I'm sorry, it's excuse me for not stringing these things correctly in my own head and putting these videos together and not keeping my emotions in check, which again, I shouldn't be saying sorry for, but it's one of those things that's driven in my head. And even with all the EMDR therapy, I am aware of that. I'm aware that I shouldn't apologize and that I've done nothing wrong, but I still have that reaction. But it's okay. To me, that's okay, because I'm still aware that even though I'm doing it, I know inside I didn't do anything. I'm just sharing. I'll pick up on another day, hopefully not too far away. I know it's only been a few days, but I was really hoping to do this sooner. But again, I was helping my friend with her nephew. And for those who did figure out who I was speaking about, please be kind to the family. They are grieving still. It hurts me to see them hurt. I didn't have to know him very well to know he was a good child, because I know this family was a good family. And they deserve more than anything time to grieve. They deserve sympathy. They deserve empathy. They love this child. It is not fair. It is not fair how the world's treating them. It's not fair what happened to them. That kid was a good kid. He should still be here. Deep breathe. Always remember to deep breathe. I know it sounds stupid, but honestly it helps me, as you can see, clear my head. I try really hard not only to mind my emotions, to talk, but also because I wear contacts. I don't know if you guys can see the little rim right here around my eye, but that's my contacts. And anybody who has contacts knows that when you cry, once everything is all dried up, they fog over. It is so annoying to clean up. And almost like it sticks there and you almost have to get yourself a whole nother pair. So unfortunately, that's how I've been dealing with things lately. But I also want to remind everybody, you know, to be kind to themselves. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes. And everything you've ever done or ever went through, it doesn't matter. You might feel it's silly, but it does matter. You might feel it doesn't matter and that you're making a big deal out of it. You're not. It's okay. I made a plaque for this family, for this child that passed away. And what it says is, hang on, I can't even remember fully. Okay, I remember. A butterfly reminds us that beauty exists at the end of all suffering. Do not conform to the world's standards. Be a butterfly and transform. I wrote that for them because things will get better soon is not the appropriate term to tell somebody who's had their child murdered. Especially such a good one. Such a good kid. All kids are innocent, but he was a good kid. So, the part of that I take for, that I personally hold to myself is the whole do not conform to the world's standards. You don't have to. Because you are you, and you matter just the same as I matter, even if sometimes I don't feel like it. I know I do. And you do too. You all do. So be kind to yourself, take a break, and don't be afraid to tell people that you need a minute. It's okay. Take a step back and try really hard. Biggest lesson I want to say at the very end from all that fracturing at the beginning is remember, sometimes when people are angry, they're not angry at you. You didn't do anything. They're angry at something else. Something else has set them off the edge. You are just the tipping point. Or you may not be anything at all. You're just the safety person that they can do it towards. That doesn't mean take their BS. You know, set your boundary. 100%. Set your boundary. But also, don't take it as a personal stab at yourself. Remember, they're just in pain. They're just hurting. Something's bothering them. That's the way I take it from people. When I see they're mad or they're hurt or they lash out. It's something has bothered them to the point where they have had it. And even, you know, those kind of people, even strangers, what I've said to them is, I'm sorry for what you're going through. You sound like you're in pain. You sound like you've had a bad day. Even my stepchildren's mother, who is impossible to talk to, she would call me out of the blue a couple months in a row. Or then she would not talk to me for months, and then all of a sudden, bing, 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 my phone's going off. And what is it? I know the only reason she's doing that is because something has happened. She's upset, and I'm the safe person to yell at. So I'll say to her, you know, instead of arguing back with her, whatever she's trying to argue with me, I'll say, I can see that you're hurting. I can see that something stressed you out today. Is there something I can do to help you calm down? Is there anything you need? At that point, even she would cry. Believe it or not. Most people, you know, it was very rare for her to do that too. But she'd break down because she knew I wasn't going to judge her for doing it. Because why should I? That is what I've taken away from all of my history, is that I should not be judgmental of other people because I may have been through the same thing, or I don't know. You know, because people don't know me. You know, they made judgment towards me based on, you know, first person talking or, you know, just sometimes my reactions when I would cry or I get emotional. They're judging. Judgment's not what I want, so I won't do it to anybody else. I'm not judging them. I'm just saying, I hear them yelling, and I'm not taking it personally. I'm just saying, hey, I can see you're hurting. Is there something I can do to help? Or do you need some space? I can give you some space until you're ready. And if they're continuously trying to badger you, you tell them, listen, I'm going to give you a minute. You can hang up the phone. You can say, I'll call you back here in about an hour and check on you. I do that with my stepdaughter. I can see you're upset. She'll be like, no, fuck you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Well, okay then. I'll be here when you're ready to talk. And she'd run in her room and slam the door. 10, 15 minutes later, she comes out here. She literally falls on my shoulders and cries. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just having a bad day. So just remember that. Most people are just having a bad day. And you're their safe spot. But it's okay to build your boundary. Just don't take it personally. If you did nothing wrong, you did nothing wrong. And your feelings matter. You matter. Have a good day, folks. I'll see you next time.